Does God exist? That is a question that I had to wrestle with when I was an atheist, and I'm going to just hit it right between the eyes right now and answer that question. Does God exist? The chicken or the egg is how I'm going to tackle it. The chicken or the egg? Which came first, chicken or the egg? Chicken? Okay, how do we know the chicken came first? Because God made it. It's helpful when you're out here with a bunch of Christians. This is from the Daily Mail Reporter back in 2010. They've cracked it at last. A chicken did indeed come before the egg. Here's what the article goes on to say. The answer, they say, is the chicken. Here's your sign. The researchers found that the formation of eggshells relies on a protein found only in chickens' ovaries. Scientists have discovered that eggs can only have been laid by chickens, thus solving the puzzle. Therefore, an egg can exist only if it has been inside of a chicken. So which came first? Not just a chicken, but a fully formed chicken, just like Genesis said. A fully formed chicken. So chicken, meet the egg. So now we're going to go on to cell theory. Let's take that same premise and go to cell theory. This is not a Christian source that I'm pulling this from. This is straight out of secular science. Cell theory. All living things are composed of one or more cells. This is common sense, people. I mean, this is really easy. Cells are basic life structure of a living thing or an organism. Okay, that's pretty simple too. Here's the real kicker. This one is, wrap your minds around this. I know we're going to get really complicated. All cells come from pre-existing cells through reproduction. Everybody do this. I mean, it's like mind-blowing science here, isn't it? So this is from Biology Online. All cells come from pre-existing cells, which means you can't have a cell without having a cell in which it was reproduced from. Chicken, meet the egg. That's what I got to say about that one. Now let's talk about DNA. Because we went from chicken, egg, we got cell. Let's go down into the root of a cell. Let's talk about DNA. DNA is right here, double helix shape. It takes DNA to transcribe a single helix shape called RNA. You can't get RNA without DNA. When RNA comes along, it creates amino acids. From amino acids, you create proteins. From proteins, you create a single cell, which is where DNA lives. How in the world are you going to get DNA unless you have the cell? Chicken, meat, egg. This is complex stuff, I know. I'm asking you to really dig deep in your biological wells here to keep up with this. This is simple. This is why I don't understand why it's so hard to believe God exists, because if we know that a chicken is necessary for an egg, and we know that a cell is necessary for a cell, because DNA can't replicate without RNA, you can't even have the enzymes within the cell to understand the information that the DNA process is trying to tell RNA without DNA existing in the first place. It all has to come beforehand. So there's a question. Why does something exist rather than nothing? Why if nothing created nothing, which you don't believe me, here's one of the leading atheists. He's a debater. He's on all sorts of platforms. This is a direct quote. The most reasonable belief is that we came from nothing, by nothing, and for nothing. And I'm reminded of that high school graduation I went to, and she talked about how we're all stardust. And I thought, you just pretty much said, go into adulting, here's your future, you came from nothing, so you mean nothing. And I'm thinking, what a motivational speech that is, you know? So here's what they believe. Here's the thing, though. Can nothing create nothing? No, nothing doesn't create nothing. So why does something rather than nothing exist? We'll let Willy Wonka tell you.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
Good day, sir. The cosmological argument, the Kalam cosmological argument says this. If A is true, which is anything that begins to exist must have a cause. Does anything that begin to exist have a cause? Yes. Things just don't pop into existence. You can't just pop a Lamborghini into existence. Do y'all see that new Corvette? Whoo, I wish I could just be like, ping, and pop a Corvette into existence. Corvettes don't pop into existence. Anything that begins to exist must have a cause. And if B is true, the universe began to exist, which we know that because the second law of entropy, thermodynamics, which is entropy, tells us that everything went from a state of order to disorder. At one point, everything was in a perfect state, and it's breaking down, which means that the universe had a beginning, a finite beginning. So if A and B are true, then C is true. The universe had a cause. Chicken, meat, egg. So here's the question. Chicken, egg, who created God? You know how many times I get this? Well, if God created the universe, then who created God? But see, God is not created. If we go to Revelation 22, chapter 22, verse 13, I love the Aramaic Bible's version. I am Alap and Tau, which is Alpha and Omega, the first and the last, the origin and the fulfillment. I am that I am. I am before everything. There is no creator of God. The very characteristic and nature of God is that he's always existed. He is the eternal. And how do we prove that? Because there's a massive problem called the SpaceTime Continuum. SpaceTime Continuum is this. You got space, you got time, and you've got matter. Now here's the thing. All three have to come into existence all at once. If you have space and time, but you have no matter, you have nothing. But if you have space and matter with no time, when did it get put in there? Or what if you had time and matter but no space? Where did matter go? See, all three have to be in existence all at the same time. This is one giant chicken meet the egg. It's a universal problem. So does God exist? I would argue that it's very simple to say, for in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. He is before, everybody say before. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. That's Colossians 1:16 through 17. Does God exist? He has to, or else you don't have a chicken, you don't have an egg, you don't have a cell, you don't have another cell, you don't have DNA, you don't have RNA, you don't have a space-time continuum answered. God has to exist is the question. Does God exist? Yes.